everybody. Welcome to ABC Studios. First time in New York?
Yes.
Right on. Where are you coming in from?
Indianapolis.
Indiana. I'm from Nebraska myself, not too far away.
Yeah.
Enjoy the show, everybody. Is she still in the green room?
Last known whereabouts. She actually said something about going home to do her makeup because the light in the dressing room was so bad.
Can't blame her. Studio 15 hardly compares to the MGM lot.
Yeah, well, regardless. The network, like Mussolini's trains, run on time, and I am the conductor. And it looks like the train is pulling into the station. All right, have a good show, everybody.
Phyllis, do I have the,
Tissues, yes, they're tucked up your sleeve.
Oh, I am a dolt.
No more than usual.
I'd like to see how clearly you'd be thinking if you were taking a short walk to the gallows.
It's just television.
Exactly.
There you are! I was afraid we'd have to send out a search party. Hope you found everything you needed backstage.
Dim as a tomb. I don't know how anyone is supposed to check their makeup in that light.
Well, I think you look
Do we have a
fantastic.
seat for Phyllis?
We've made accommodations for Miss Wilson in the green room.
It's Wilburn, dear, and she's with me. Can we get Phyllis a chair? We're not rolling it, are we? Hello, is anyone going to answer?
You'll have to forgive Miss Hepburn. She's a trifle hard of hearing.
All right, dear. Yes. You have to excuse Phyllis' death as a host. This isn't how it's going to look, is it?
Is
I mean, we're
there,
not filming yet, are we?
is there something you don't like about the...
Well, this rug, for starters, this rug is awful. Look at the colors, it's so drab. I made myself up in a tomb and now you've laid me out on a slab. This is color television. People need something bright to look at. I'm drab enough. I need some color to liven me up.
I think the rug is...
Can we change this rug? We're
Isn't
not
this-
filming yet, are we?
Isn't this new?
Well, it's nailed down.
I could run home and get a better rug than this. I could have Phyllis send for something from the house. Is this how we should go? No, this isn't right. I should reach it right.
Yeah. Whatever makes you more comfortable.
Well, it has to look right, doesn't it?
Uh-huh.
I don't know about that rug. The rug stays.
Yeah.
What?
Oh no, this is awful. Can we get something sturdier here? Can we trade out this table?
Let's let the crew get that.
I have a union card. I can move this myself.
Can we get a little help over here?
Can
please?
we get something sturdier here? Is anyone going to answer me? They're either deaf or on break.
Take it back.
So, what are you gonna put on the table that's so heavy?
Well, my feet, of course. I need something to put my feet on.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Is there something wrong with it? Well, just let me pull on it, and if it doesn't look right, come back and fix it later.
Okay, are we ready? In 3, 2, 1.
It's the Dick Cavett Show. Featuring special guest, Miss Catherine Hepburn.
Well, this is an incredible honor to have Katharine Hepburn on the show. Unless you've been living in a cave since 1934, you'll know her as the recipient of a whopping 3 Academy Awards for Best Actress, the first at the very start of her career. She was also nominated by the Academy an additional 11 times. Yes, you heard me correctly. 11 times. Her career has spanned 4 decades, is still in full swing, and she's in the elite company of film actors who have appeared repeatedly and successfully on the stage. She's appeared in comedies, tragedies, and musical theater with some of the most revered names in the business. Tonight's another milestone in her illustrious career, her first televised interview. Miss Hepburn, welcome.
Just call me Kate.
Well, that'll take some getting used to. I will unabashedly say I have been an ardent fan of yours since the beginning.
Your beginning or my beginning? That might be quite a different number of years.
All right then, I've been a fan of yours since I first started going to the movies.
Well, I can't say the same thing about you. I almost never watch television. I have a television. I just don't think it's plugged in. Phyllis would know.
I may need a word with Phyllis then. But speaking of television, it's hardly a new medium. Why did you wait so long to do a televised interview?
What could I possibly have to say that anyone would find interesting? For all I know, people might find me a terrible bore.
Oh, I don't think people would
With my
find it.
friend Irene Selznick, it was her idea. She said, "It's time, Kate, just do the damn thing."
Well, thank you, Miss Selznick. And we'll do our best to make this an enjoyable experience for you.
Let's hope your best is good enough.
Only time will tell, I suppose. But am I correct in assuming that your career has taught you how to deal with pressure on the set?
Well, there's nothing like landing a good punch to let people know where you stand.
Should I move my chair back?
You can move mine right off the set and I'll go home.
Please don't do that. I promise I'll behave. But I also hope I am correct in assuming that the majority of your movies don't come to blows.
More than you might think. Just ask Peter O'Toole.
You punched Peter O'Toole?
Well, I just sort of biffed him. We shared a makeup man, and I sent for the makeup man, and he didn't come, and he didn't come, and I...
This was on the set of The Lion in Winter.
Well, I'd get to that if he'd stop interrupting me.
Just please don't hit me.
I marched down to Peter's trailer, and there he was just shooting the breeze with the makeup man, and Peter wasn't working until later, and I was in the next shot, so I said, when I send for the makeup man, he damn well better come. And then I just sort of biffed him.
Hey, Peter O'Toole, not the makeup man.
Now you're being ludicrous.
I'm sorry. And did O'Toole hit back?
No, but a little later he showed up on set, bandaged from head to toe and on crutches.
When you're,
Wonderful sense of humor. We had great fun.
So when you're not punching people, what regulates you? Did you do anything to prepare for this interview?
Other than make plans to skip town.
We're so glad you didn't. But what I mean is there's a move now towards inner awareness. It's not uncommon to hear celebrities,
Am
right?
I a celebrity? I thought I was just an old bore.
I make it a practice not to book old bores on my show.
Only time will tell.
I bet my career on it.
Oh God, I don't want to be responsible for that.
Where was I going with this?
You tell me.
Yes, I believe we were speaking about inner awareness. Now, you've never publicly followed a guru or embraced any particular religion, but do you have any spiritual practice, perhaps meditation?
You mean, do I contemplate my navel? No, complete waste of time. I mean, my God, how much is there to think about? If I want to regulate my inner self, I'll use psyllium husk fiber or take a good brisk walk.
No chemical assistance? Cary Grant, with whom you did some of your most well-known work, has admitted to experimenting with LSD to gain self-awareness. Have you tried any sensory-altering substances? You ever tried dope?
No, but I'm beginning to feel like a dope for doing this interview. No, I never felt the need for any of that. It slows you down, makes you dull. I don't do funny tea either.
Funny tea?
Oh, you know, what do you call it? What is it, Phyllis?
Herbal.
Herbal.
Can we make a note to remove any herbal tea from Miss Hepburn's dressing room?
Got it.
Oh, sorry, not Miss Hepburn. Kate. I'm still struggling using such an informal means of address with a Hollywood legend.
God, you make me sound like an absolute antique.
Not at all. I mean that you have a legendary career. You've worked with some of Hollywood's most notable directors. You had particular success with George Cukor, who's a legend in his own right and a close personal friend of yours. Why do you think that is?
Are you asking about George as a director or as a friend? I can't keep up with you.
Well, both, I guess, but...
Well, George was an actor's director. John Ford focused on plot. John Huston focused on plot. They were more concerned about presenting themselves as directors, while George was more interested in presenting the actors. He knew just how to position the camera or how long to hold a shot to show the actors at their best. George had a firm hand on the tiller, and that's what every actor wants and needs. George knew how to present me on screen to make me look fabulous, glamorous.
You don't think you're naturally fabulous and glamorous?
That public creature is just something I invented. That's not me, not at all. I thought you were going to ask me about my friendship with George Cukor.
Tell us, please.
George has a beautiful home, and he gave wonderful parties. All kinds of fascinating people gathered for dinner and drinks and hours of stimulating conversation. We had a regular group. It was Garson Kanan and Ruth Gordon, Bogey and Bacall, Olivier and Vivian Lee, and of course Spencer and me.
Spencer Tracy.
Well, of course, Spencer Tracy. Who else? George had little guest homes on his property, and Spencer and I lived in them. Not together, not in the same one. I was close by, so I could keep an eye on Spencer when his health was failing. He died there on George's property. Are you going to ask me something else?
If you want to talk more about Spencer
No, I
Tracy.
think you were going to ask me something else.
What was I about to add? Yes. Who was the most challenging director you ever worked with?
The worst or the most challenging? A challenging director will make you dig deep. A bad director will ruin your confidence. My worst experience, hands down, was Jed Harris directing The Lake. Most diabolical person I ever met. He had it in for me from the very beginning. Made me doubt myself to the point that I was a complete disaster on stage. I'd been warned about him. Helen Hayes warned me. I finally bought myself out of the show, bought out my contract just so I could leave. Of course, his career went nowhere and he died a desperate failure. But years later, he ran into my agent, Leland Hayward, and he said, "You know, I tried to destroy Katharine Hepburn." And Leland said, "Well, you failed, didn't you?" Here I am 40 years later, and when's the last time you ever heard someone mention Jed Harris?
Your breakouts.
I'm sure you heard about Dorothy Parker's review of my performance in The Lake. Miss Hepburn ran the gamut, M-U-T-T, of emotions from A to B.
Since you mentioned Dorothy Parker, did you mingle with the members of the Algonquin Round Table?
No, but I was good friends with Dorothy's husband, Alan Campbell. He's a fine actor and a decent, sensitive man. We were both lucky to have him.
You've remembered Parker's comments down to the letter. Do you pore over your review?
I never read them. They're too late to be of any help.
You obviously
Is this
read.
really the kind of thing you want to know? Is this what you're trying to find out?
I'll listen to anything you say in that inimitable voice.
The voice one critic compared to nickels falling into a coin slot.
Well, we need to take a break, but we'll be right back with Katharine Hepburn and her loose change.
Better than having a loose screw.
Can I collect any questions anyone has for Ms. Hepburn?
Phyllis, give me the grease, would you, dear?
Does anyone have another question? They may want another card. Thank you.
Is that grease, you said? You haven't run a car on set, have you? What's in there?
Never you mind.
All right, ready? In 3, 2, 1.
And we are back with legend of stage and screen, Katharine Hepburn.
Good God, there's that word again. I'm not dead yet.
Well, may I bring up one of your legendary lines?
It's your show. You can do whatever you want.
I'm beginning to wonder. The line you're most often associated with is the one beginning, "The calla lilies are in bloom again." Do you still remember it?
The calla lilies are in bloom again, such a strange flower, suitable for any occasion. I carried them on my wedding day, and now I place them here in memory of something that has died.
And that's from the film Stage Door.
Well, it's from a play within a film, actually. In the movie, Stage Door, the character I portray is an actress who has a lead in the play, The Lake. The play I bombed in so horribly, thanks to Jed Harris.
The director nobody remembered until today.
Are you telling this or am I? Gregory LaCava directed the film Stage Door, and he just would toss out the script and start improvising, something new every day. It kept the cast guessing, which was unnerving, but he had the brilliant idea to take my most miserable experience on stage and turn it into something enjoyable in the movie. So that same line comes in from the play. It's a play within a film. You see, an inside joke.
And a way to tell Jed Harris to take that?
Take that and shove it. You know where.
Let's bring up a name better known to audiences.
Yes, let's.
I was thinking Greta Garbo. You've been compared to Garbo, called the American Garbo. Do you think that's an appropriate comparison?
Well, I've heard myself referred to as the poor man's Garbo. Garbo is fascinating, glamorous. She appears on a scene and you can't stop looking at her. You just want to know everything about her and you know she's not going to give it to you. That's a movie star. She opened the door for actresses like me, lean and angular, you know. But we've done very different kinds of work, and I don't see any other comparisons. Yes, I'm a private person, but God, I'm much more fun than Garbo.
You're private about much of your life, but you've always been public in your admiration of your parents.
Yes, I am completely and totally the product of two fascinating individuals who just happen to be my parents. I've had a pretty remarkable life, but compared to my mother and father, I'm dull.
What did you admire most about them?
Well, everything. They were progressive social reformers, I guess you would say, with liberal ideas about women and politics and raising children. They raised 5 children to be adventurous, free thinkers and active, always physically active. Tennis, swimming, golf, wrestling. And this was in Hartford, Connecticut, remember. So to conservative New Englanders, we must have appeared a tribe of wild Indians.
Yeah. There must have been some intellectualism in your tribe. Your father was a doctor.
Yes, and mother was a leader in the women's suffrage movement, you know, votes for women. So you never knew who might show up for tea. Margaret Sanger or Rebecca West or Eveline Pankhurst.
What was the topic of conversation?
Venereal disease.
So,
Dad was a urologist, you know, and he helped establish the New England Social Hygiene Association in order to educate the public about the dangers of venereal disease. It was a terrible scourge linked to prostitution, white slavery, teenage pregnancy.
So did...
And even as kids, we could ask questions like, what does gonorrhea look like?
I'll try to avoid that mental picture.
And you know, Mother headed the Connecticut Women's Suffrage Association, but she also campaigned for birth control. Now, these were not always popular views. We had bricks thrown through our windows, we got spit on in the streets, but you hold your head up and you keep on going.
And you never resented them for exposing you to that kind of public condemnation?
Never. We were so lucky to have them as parents, so very lucky.
You went to your mother's alma mater, Bryn Mawr. Tell us about your experience there.
Well, I got expelled. Well, not expelled, put on, what do you call it, probation for smoking in my room. I didn't know it wasn't allowed, I just wanted to try it. I spent a lot of time in my room. I was crossing the dining hall one day and I heard one of my classmates say, "Self-conscious beauty." Well, I nearly dropped dead. I knew I was self-conscious, but I never thought of myself as a beauty. I didn't know what to think, so I took my meals in my room from then on.
I understand that you also had your first theatrical experience there.
Well, I had parts in small shows, but what really got me attention was the role of Pandora in The Woman on the Moon. It was a new show for the Bryn Mawr May Day celebration. Wonderful role, lots of emotional range. And we performed in the library cloisters with the sun streaming down on our faces, and I was barefoot. And my parents were in the audience, and my father said that all he could see of the performance was the soles of my feet getting blacker and blacker, and my face getting redder and redder.
Did your parents support your career?
Not so much in the beginning. My father thought that acting was a profession similar to street walking. You know, a shabby profession based on youth and looks with no foundation. My mother thought it was great. Anything to keep me from falling into the trap of becoming a nursemaid to children. Both my parents wanted me to be able to live independently of men. Dad just didn't really care for the road I'd chosen, but he never dissuaded me. He might have thought acting was a cheesy profession, but better to be cheesy than be a quitter.
So he inspired tenacity in you.
Tenacity, love of learning, and striving, always striving.
There were other men who must have influenced your life. Your name's been linked romantically with your husband, of course, Ludlow Ogden Smith, Howard Hughes, Douglas Fairbanks Jr., Leland Hayward, John Ford, to name a few. What made Spencer Tracy different? What made that relationship last?
Well, I don't know if Spencer was different, but I became different somehow. I was a pig to my husband, a terrible pig. I only married him because I didn't get a part I wanted, the lead in the stage play Holiday. Luddy was my safety net, Luddy, my husband. I made him change his name to S. Ogden Ludlow because I didn't want to be Mrs. Smith. Too anonymous. And I certainly didn't want to be Kate Smith, mistaken for the singer of the same name. So I insisted that he legally change his name, and he did. He did that for me. The marriage didn't last, of course, but the friendship did. We remained fast friends, and he was always part of the family. My parents loved him. He was always at family gatherings, and one time Howard said to my father that he didn't think Luddy should be present at family gatherings, and Dad told Howard that Luddy had been around and part of the family before Howard showed up, and he'd still be part of the family after Howard was gone. Howard wanted to marry me too, you know, but we were both so driven to be, I don't know, to be stars. You can't have that in a marriage. Someone has to serve to help the other be great.
I'd like to get back to Spencer Tracy, but were you surprised that Howard Hughes became a recluse?
Well, Howard was almost completely deaf, you know, but he wouldn't admit it, and I think that's why he felt ill at ease with people. It's sad and unnecessary, nothing to be ashamed of. Just say, I'm deaf, I need you to speak louder. Brilliant, brilliant man, but he didn't have family to help him, you know, to ground him. He became isolated in his own world, and all he heard were the voices in his head, and that's enough to send you to cuckoo land.
Let's get back to Spencer
I'm not
Tracy.
saying that Howard didn't support my career or want me to succeed. He purchased the motion picture rights for me for Philadelphia Story while the stage play was still in development. I'd had a string of unsuccessful films. It was considered a box office poison, could only work on stage, and Howard thought that Philadelphia Story might be my ticket back to Hollywood, and he was right.
And Spencer Tracy?
Well, as I said, I became different. It wasn't until Spencer that I really learned what love was, that it's more important to love than to be loved. It's not about what you're expecting to get, but what you're expecting to give, which has to be everything.
So you and Tracy...
And you know, the timing of the Philadelphia Story couldn't have come at a better time. It was 1938, and David Selznick was down to the wire to cast Scarlett O'Hara in Gone with the Wind. And I said I'd fill in a pinch, even had some costumes prepared. But of course, Vivian Leigh got the part, and that was for the best. Scarlett was a wicked fascinator, and I am neither wicked nor fascinating. Even Selznick said he couldn't imagine Clark Gable lusting for Catherine Hepburn through the entire Civil War.
Are you going to let me talk about Spencer Tracy?
Are you going to let me finish talking about Philadelphia Story?
If that's what we're doing right now...
Cary
we'll
Grant
only
was
talk-
so much fun to work with. You know, we had done other films together. Sylvia Scarlett, Holiday, Bringing Up Baby. Cary had trained as an acrobatic dancer, so he could do all the physical comedy, play it broadly or gracefully. I was very athletic, swam, played tennis and golf, so I could keep up with him. We played off each other well with the physical comedy. And Cary is just, he's a man's man. So charming, just the soul of charm.
And in the opening scene of Philadelphia Story, he shoves you in your face and pushes you right
On my
over.
backside, yes.
Looked like quite a pratfall. Did you have anything to land on? Did it hurt?
I don't remember. I know it's in the movie because I've seen it, but I have no memory of doing it. Why are you asking me things I don't remember? Ask Phyllis. She's an absolute crypt of all my secrets. God only knows what she remembers anymore.
I remember what I remember.
Could we book Miss Wilbur for next week?
Don't you dare. She's got some of the greatest stories in the world, and she'll take them to her grave.
Should we introduce Phyllis to the audience? People may be wondering who she is and why she's here.
Well, she's here to help me.
And should we have you stand up?
Oh, don't ask her to stand. She won't stand.
And how long have you two had an association?
Since the 1950s, wasn't it, dear?
1955.
Yes, 1955. Phyllis had been a companion to Constance,
Secretary.
as you wish, dear. Phyllis had been secretary to Constance Collier, one of my dear friends, and a brilliant character actress and dramatic coach.
I remember her from a stage door and Hitchcock's Rope.
Yes, and she died soon after that film. Constance and Phyllis and I had always traveled together, and after Constance died, Phyllis didn't want to go back to England to work, and I needed help managing things, so that was the beginning of our association, as you put it.
And what are her duties as your associate?
Secretary.
Well, everything.
Well, I'm afraid we don't have time in the show to cover all that. So let's get back to your career, and thank you, Phyllis Wilburn, for joining us.
You're quite welcome.
I have no idea what I was about to ask.
Well, don't look at me, it's your show.
Yes, your career. Let me throw this out there. What was it like to work with Samuel Goldwyn?
He was a pirate with a sense of humor. I'll say no more.
And L.B. Mayer?
Wild and romantic. He had a passion for people who could do things. But he despised liberals, so not on my side of the fence at all.
And I understand that you had a rather tempestuous relationship with director Joseph Mankiewicz on the set of Tennessee Williams' Suddenly Last Summer.
I never should have done that film. I was miscast. Too much of a lady to play Violet Venable.
But you did have a run-in with Mankiewicz as a director?
Well, I spit on him. Or in his general direction. Monty Clift was the lead in that movie, you know. And he'd been in a terrible auto accident and was struggling with pain and his inner demons, and the filming schedule was exhausting for him. And Mankiewicz was a bully, a terrible bully to him. The whole cast had it in for Mankiewicz by the end of filming.
And you never did another Tennessee Williams play or film?
Well, I played Violet Venable and Amanda Wingfield.
In the Glass Menagerie?
Glass Menagerie, yes. And, you know, they wanted me for the stage version of Night of the Iguana. Can you imagine? Tennessee's life, his personal life, was a nightmare. And his work had that nightmarish quality. You don't want to spend years with his people. So I turned that down and did Eugene O'Neill's Long Day's Journey into Night.
For which you were nominated for an Oscar.
Nominated and lost.
To Anne Bancroft
Yes.
for The Miracle Worker?
Yes,
A role she originated on Broadway.
yes.
Tell us about your experience on Broadway.
Terrifying, absolutely terrifying. I'd much rather own a theater in Brooklyn than ever open on Broadway.
Is it your own personal stage fright? Are you fearful that the production will fail?
Well, it's energy or pacing. I can't control it. I go charging through the lines and I get faster and faster, and my voice just goes right up into my head. Lost my voice many a time on stage, completely ruined it. That's why it sounds like this now. I never could learn the proper breathing technique or whatever it is. I studied with some of the best teachers in the business. I couldn't get the hang of the breathing.
Why do you think that?
They have you do all kinds of bizarre exercises, you know.
Who does?
My God, are you running this interview or are you not? The voice teachers, they give you all kinds of bizarre exercises, like placing your hand on your diaphragm or blowing out a candle. Never did a thing for me, not a thing. I saved my breath to cool my porridge.
And yet, you took the role of Coco Chanel in the 1969 musical Coco.
Yes.
Your first musical performance.
Yes.
That must have been challenging for your
Oh,
voice.
it was.
Was that the first time you'd sung on stage?
I didn't sing in that show. I sang the lyrics like, Rex Harrison in My Fair Lady. I'm not a singer, never have been.
But you still took the role, and the reviews, which I know you don't read, credited you with carrying the show. Do you feel you're still evolving as a performer?
Well, if you don't improve, you slip inevitably backward, or you hammer on the same spot.
So you're open to taking risks.
Always take risks, in work and in life. If you obey all the rules, you miss all the fun. And it has to come from within. You have to do it yourself, that forward motion, that drive. If you don't paddle your own canoe, you don't move.
Is that the, so you're saying that,
All my life, I have been lawless, fearless. Even as a child, I was climbing the highest trees and diving off the piers into deep water. Even did a little breaking and entering in my misspent youth.
breaking and entering?
Oh, just as a lark, something to do. My friend Alice Barber and I used to go into the houses along the Sound, and I was the B&E man because I could climb the walls and scale the roofs and crawl through windows, and I could have been a great cat burglar if the whole acting thing hadn't worked out. I was very sure-footed.
Sure-footed. Well, I do have to say, I find your toes adorable.
Well, I could concentrate better if you'd stop waggling your foot as you speak. It's very distracting.
I'm sorry. I'll try to remain still. So, you've always been a rule breaker?
Live dangerously and don't worry about the consequences. There's a lot to be said for sinning.
Is that bravado the secret to the longevity of your career?
Well, a long career comes from a long life.
But there are other actresses of your generation whose careers have gone in questionable directions. And Joan Crawford has been in slasher films. Betty Davis has done commercials. How do you keep finding quality roles and quality projects? What's your secret?
Well, it's the money, isn't it? I've never had to take parts for money. My father took charge of my finances when I first entered the business, and he made some very smart decisions. So, thanks to him, I've never had to take a part that wasn't right for me or didn't interest me.
Do you feel you've been successful?
I've never really thought about it, success, or being successful. I was just out there making it in a man's world, succeeding. When you come right down to it, I really haven't lived life as a woman. I've lived it more as a man. Or maybe I'm just the odd fellow out and something in between.
Do you feel your personality is why you've been repeatedly cast as independent, free-thinking women?
Well, I don't know about my personality, but I do have a reputation for being highly intellectual. I think it has something to do with my manner or the shape of my face.
You are known for a signature look, a unique way of dress. Is that a personal statement? Is it a persona?
Well, it's not a statement. It's comfort and practicality. Everything I'm wearing is completely washable, although you might call the turtleneck a vanity since it covers the most evident area of my decay.
Do you worry about aging?
Well, there's nothing to be done for it. The alternative to aging is death, and I don't find that too attractive.
how does your age impact your work at this point?
I don't think people tuned in to see Katharine Hepburn discuss her age on national television.
Oh, I didn't mean that.
66.
I didn't ask.
Well, you were going to ask how old I was.
I thought that I was asking about the impact of your age on the roles that you take.
Well, obviously, I can't play ingenues anymore. My body has slowed down. It still works for the most part. I don't spring from a chair anymore, but I can still get out of a chair. See, I could get out of this chair and just walk off the set. And there are parts of my body that don't photograph as well, as I said, like my turkey gullet.
I'm almost afraid to ask this now.
Well, if you're afraid to ask questions, you shouldn't be an interviewer, should you?
All right then, here goes. We're taking the risk. Diving in. Have you ever felt the temptation, as so many in Hollywood have, to have a little nip or tuck? I'm not saying you need it. Just...
Well, thank you very much. Although I don't think that your opinion would send me running to the plastic surgeon. No, I'm not Hollywood. It's where I work, but I've never felt the need to preen or coddle my ego or maintain some sort of a there she goes, isn't she glamorous kind of persona. I never needed it to get parts.
What do you think you have that keeps you active in Hollywood and on the stage? What's the allure?
Well, it's either some kind of electricity or some kind of energy. I don't know what it is, but whatever it is, I've got it.
It certainly worked.
And I set my hair on wet newspaper.
Newspaper?
Yes, when paper dries, the hair is set. Will you ask about my signature look? Honestly, I have no idea where this interview is going.
Right now, it's going to commercial break. We'll be right back with more Katharine
I need some water.
Oh, don't worry. Can somebody get some water for Miss Hepburn?
No, Phyllis will get it.
Oh, we have crew who can do that.
No, Phyllis knows how I like it.
She gets the right degree of wetness.
I'm beginning to understand why they call you Dick.
Hepburn, since you asked me where this interview is going, I'm taking it to Africa.
What in the world does that have to do with it?
The movie The African Queen was released in 1951 and was nominated for 4 Academy Awards. Best Director, John Huston. Best Actor, Humphrey Bogart. Best Actress, Katharine Hepburn. And Best Screenplay, James Agee and John Huston.
And Bogey won. He considered it his finest performance.
You'd read the novel it was based on by C.S. Forrester. Did you think it would make a good script? Is that why you took the role?
Well, the novel was thrilling, absolutely thrilling. but I took the role because of the people involved in the project. As far as the script, well, there was no script until we were already in Uganda and ready to shoot.
What was the holdup?
Well, it was John.
John Huston, the director?
Absolutely maddening man. Moved according to his own inner clock, Irish, you know. And nothing could budge him. Anytime I'd ask about the script, he'd say, "Don't worry, you'll see it." Well, I hope so.
How did he run a set with that kind of casual attitude?
Well, his direction was maddeningly vague. Just do what's in your head and we'll follow. Anytime I asked a question or made a suggestion, it was, "Yes, dear," or "That's interesting." The most specific direction he gave me was to smile like Eleanor Roosevelt.
Eleanor Roosevelt.
Yes, to turn up the corners of my mouth so I didn't look so morose. You know, that smile Eleanor Roosevelt gave the troops. Carry on, things will get better. God damnedest bit of direction I ever got. Bogey said that's just how he works, and it's worth it.
Well, it certainly worked out, especially for Humphrey Bogart. What was it like to work with him?
Extraordinarily decent fellow. Fair, forthright, uncomplicated, great sense of humor.
He must have been a good sport to put up with the physical demands of the film. I assume it was physically demanding?
Most difficult location I ever worked on. The rains would turn the roads to mud to the point where they were almost impassable. And it was just damp, impossibly damp. Your clothes were damp. Towels smelled like babies' diapers. Cigarettes were soft and hard to draw on. Anything leather, shoes, luggage, became covered in mold. The buttons rotted right off John's pants, and I had to sew on new ones.
So you were damp in the boat and wet in the water.
Oh, we never got in the river. You couldn't set foot in the river. It was polluted with a bug called bilharzia. Enters the body through the pores and openings and creates boils in the urinary tract and bladder.
Did you suffer any physical maladies?
Well, you know, we did the underwater scenes in a tank in London, 2 different locations. It was very cold water, very cold water. Poor Bogey was freezing. Of course, you know, I swim every day in Long Island Sound, so it didn't bother me at all, but I suppose that made me all the more irritating. And yes, I did get terribly sick in Uganda, just a crawling illness coming all over me. I was weak and achy and just couldn't eat. I lost 20 pounds and I was thin to begin with. I became absolutely gaunt. It turned out that the bottled water I'd been drinking just to avoid such a malady was contaminated. So the joke was on me. And meanwhile, John and Bogey had lined their stomachs with so much alcohol, no bug could survive. So much for my teetotaling superiorities. I did take an antibiotic, but it was a long time before I could face a hot meal.
Well, did they stop shooting while you were sick?
No, I kept working. You just put your head down and you keep going. John was very kind to me, though. He rubbed my back and neck and feet during the worst of it. Gentle touch, gentle man.
You know, is there an actual African queen? Did they save it? Can we go see it in a film museum somewhere?
I'll ignore the fact that you might be referring to me as a museum piece.
No. I meant the boat itself.
Oh, there was no boat. It was a collection of sets for different parts of the boat. That was the only way they could get close enough to us for filming.
Your character, Rose Sayer, she became a bit of a heroine, didn't she? And that extended to you as a public figure?
Yes, in fact, there's a line in the film where Rose says, "Fancy me, a heroine."
And the timing could not have been better, because you had just had a run-in with the House Un-American Committee.
Yes, that was in 1947. And I made a speech endorsing the presidential candidate for the Progressive Party. And I was stupid enough to do it wearing a red dress. All of a sudden, I'm Pinko Kate or the Lady in Red.
And the studios, they wouldn't cast you.
Well, it wasn't just that. The theaters wouldn't show my films. I was banned in Indiana. The critics were on me like a pack of hounds. Hedda Hopper was compiling a dossier on me, if you can imagine anything so fantastic.
Well, did you challenge the accusation? Like celebrities like Myrna Loy sued for slander.
Too ludicrous to dignify with any kind of response. It's best to let it die down.
And all you and Bogey had to do was sink a fake German ship in a movie to get back in America's good graces.
Yes, and it was all so silly because the character, Charlie Allnut, is Canadian, and my character, Rosea, was British.
What do you think happened to Charlie and Rosie?
I like to think they had lots of little Charlies and Rosies and lived happily ever after.
The role of Rose Sayer is by no means glamorous.
Oh, by no means. She was a scrawny spinster like me.
And yet, she's a romantic figure. Do you think that role opened more opportunities for you in Hollywood? I'm thinking of the role of Jane Hudson in Summertime, the film you made with David Lean in...
1955.
And you were at the time, here we go with your age again.
In my late 40s.
Yes, so you were playing a middle-aged single woman, not
conventionally beautiful.
I was going to say, not the kind of character Hollywood was portraying as the romantic heroine at the time, yet there you were, in Venice, portraying a romantic heroine. You were in the arms of Rossano Brazzi. Did you find Venice a romantic city?
Well, the architecture is fascinating, truly beautiful, but nothing prepares you for the smell.
The smell?
Of the canals, perfectly vile.
So that scene where Jane Hudson falls backwards in the Venetian Canal, that was really you? You didn't have a stunt double or anything?
Oh no, that was me. I'm a strong swimmer. I swim every day, so I wasn't afraid to fall into the water. The difficulty was that the canals are just filled with filth and disease. So I had to gargle immediately because I stupidly fell in with my mouth open. And of course I took a bath right away. But I forgot to bathe my eyes.
Your eyes?
Yes, I got a staph infection. And my eyes still bother me to this day. In fact, they're troubling me now and I'm going to go bathe them.
You're coming back, aren't you?
Well, I guess I'm supposed to.
Well, we've still got a lot of time left in the show, and I'd like to ask you more about Spencer Tracy. Can we take a break now? Let's. We'll be right back, I hope, with more Katharine Hepburn.
And that's a short intermission, folks. Please avail yourself at the refreshments, the restroom, or just walk around and have fun. We'll be right back. Glad to hear you're finally finding this fun.
Well, the evening isn't over yet, Buster, so mind what these at cute. Phyllis, I need more tissue over here.
And in 3, 2, 1, we're back.
And we are back with the amazing Kate Hepburn. Nobody ever called you Kate the Great?
Not that I'm aware of. I have been called Catherine of Arrogance.
I find that impossible to believe. But when we say great, we have to acknowledge a great talent. A name that has been linked with yours for 30 years, and that is, of course, Spencer Tracy. You made 9 films together. It's practically a franchise. 9 films, starting in 1942 with
Woman of the Year. Yes, directed by George Stevens.
Yes, Woman of the Year, then Keeper of the Flame, Without Love, Sea of Grass, State of the Union, Adam's Rib, Pat and Mike, The Desk Set, and Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, for which you received your 2nd Oscar, and Tracy was nominated posthumously. Spencer Tracy won 2 Academy Awards for Best Actor, and was nominated 3 more times, but your record surpasses his.
Is that a question?
I suppose I'm just surprised that for his acclaimed talent, he wasn't recognized more.
Well, we just never put that much stock in awards, you know. I never went to the Academy Awards ceremony. I don't display my Oscars now. It seems hypocritical since I wasn't there to pick them up in person.
How would you describe Spencer Tracy's acting style?
Well, it wasn't a style at all. He just was completely honest and authentic.
I read that his advice to Burt Reynolds was, don't act, behave.
Well, there, see, you got it. You already know. Spencer was like a baked potato, pure, simple, of the earth, completely self-contained. And he had a phenomenal memory. Never needed to study a script, not until the very end, his last picture. He would read a script once, review it the night before filming, and then deliver a perfect read.
Do you think his talent...
And, you know, Spencer was so well known to audience. He was a favorite with audiences, and his face was so well known to the public. It was an Irish face, strong and solid, a man's face. He was a man. He was an American man with an Irish background, and it represented M-A-N in capital letters. And he had a bull's neck, size 17, a man's neck.
I wouldn't associate you with someone or something bullish. What do you think made you and Tracy such an ideal match on the screen?
Well, certainly the ideal man is Spencer. Sports-loving, a man's man. As I said, strong-looking, a big head, a boar's neck, a man. And I represent a woman. I needle a man. I irritate him. Yet he could put out his big paw and just squash me. And I think this is pretty much the romantic ideal of the male and female in the United States.
Do you think that's still a current view? I mean, does it represent your own view of the male and female today? What's your position on, say, women's lib?
Well, it's ridiculous. The sexes are different and nothing's going to make them the same.
Your mother was progressive on women's rights.
But she knew that in a marriage, one has to support the other, and it's the women who raise the children. That's why she wanted something different for me. You can't have a career and a family. You cannot have both, because you will be split in half. You cannot have it all. Now, a woman can have a place at the table, but only after she's set it for a man. A woman can give a man enormous confidence.
Did Spencer Tracy need confidence?
He had his demons. His son was born totally deaf, you know, and think he always felt tremendous guilt about it. His problem, I think, was a curious combination of his imagination and his Catholicism and his artistry. He didn't fit in the feminized world of Hollywood. He was oversensitive, and he drank to drown those sensations.
Did he?
And I took care of him, put my needs on hold completely. Took 5 years out of my career to take care of him when he needed me.
It sounds like your earlier description of marriage.
I never wanted to marry Spencer Tracy, but I never thought of walking out. I loved him, and I wanted to be with him. And if I had left, we both would have been miserable.
Was it love at first sight when you met?
Not for him. He told me my fingernails were dirty.
And for you?
Like being hit over the head with a cast iron skillet.
And it lasted because...
He fascinated me. He had a wonderful sense of humor, Irish down to his fingertips. He made me laugh. He had a way of looking at the world that just created laughter.
Your last film was Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, for which you won your second Oscar.
And Spencer was nominated posthumously for Best Actor.
A highly acclaimed film in which you played a long-time married couple. Did that role evoke a sense of familiarity for you?
Well, there was a family atmosphere on the set. My niece, Catherine Houghton, played my daughter. But the production crew was so helpful and supportive of Spencer because they knew his health was failing. So they would shoot his scenes early in the morning so he could go home and rest. So when you see me alone in a shot, I'm speaking to the script supervisor because Spencer wasn't on set.
Guess Who's Coming to Dinner has been, to date, your largest box office success. Do you feel it was fitting that it was Tracy's final role?
Well, he certainly wasn't aware of it. He shot his last scene in May.
This is 1967?
Yes, and he died a month later of a heart attack. He'd been suffering for years, and the end was quick, which was merciful.
What was it like to make a message picture?
A what?
Well, this is a film about racial prejudice, or rather that racial prejudice has no place in today's society. Is that a message you endorse?
I don't think we need messages. I think we just need to be human beings. I mean, black, white, why can't we just get together and laugh?
Indeed. I'm aware of the time. I'm also aware of the fact that we've asked the audience to ask a few questions of their own.
What could they possibly want to know about this old bore?
Who knows? They might just find you fascinating.
They look like a decent crowd. Let's hope they're kind.
Looks can be deceiving. Let's start with an easier one. What are your beauty secrets?
Colgate tooth powder and Albaline cream. Oh golly, is that unpaid advertising? Well then, a good rough towel.
I'll keep that in mind for my regimen.
Yes, take that thing off your face.
I understand that you lost your brother at a very young age. How did that affect your life and your family?
Well, he was just gone. That's all there was to it. We just took what life had to offer, and we moved on, and we didn't speak of it again.
Well, for this one, you might want to be prepared to cut in case it gets a little too scandalous for television.
Okay.
Would you mind talking about the story of you skinny dipping in the cloister fountain at Bryn Mawr?
That's a freshman rite of passage. Everyone did it.
Cover your ears at home, kids. And continue covering them. Who was the best lover you ever had?
Whose question was that? Identify yourself.
I don't know where ABC finds these people. He's pulled them off the street.
Well, we'll meet after the show.
Who knows? It could be you. Is it true that you shaved your head, wore boys' clothing, and called yourself Jimmy as a child?
Yes. Being a girl was torment and Jimmy was freedom. As Jimmy, I could spring handsprings or take flying somersaults off my father's shoulders in the water. Being Jimmy was how I got my father's attention and approval.
Did Jed Harris do anything right in the history of theater?
Other than die an inconsequential footnote. Oh, I think he had a successful production of Uncle Vanya or something.
You had a successful relationship with the Bard. What was your favorite Shakespeare role?
Oh, that would be Rosalind in As You Like It.
I recall you set a record with that performance.
Yes, it was 100 and, what was it, Phyllis? 140 some consecutive performances. I think the previous record was 60 something in London around the turn of the century.
You stated a dislike for Tennessee Williams. Were there any of his characters that you enjoyed playing?
Only Amanda Wingfield in Glass Menagerie. And of course, the definitive performance in that role was Laurette Taylor, who was just the most authentic performer I ever saw after Spence. Irish, you know, it's the Irish. And I met her after performance one time, and she was removing her makeup, and she was just a short, ordinary-looking, middle-aged woman. Nothing spectacular about her complexion or anything, but when she stepped on stage, there was this transformation and something just shone forth. As I said, the most authentic performer I've ever seen after Spencer.
A creative questioner has written their question in the portrait orientation. You've worked with some of Hollywood's great leading men, Humphrey Bogart, Cary Grant. Do you ever see yourself working with Henry Fonda?
Well, I'm not dead yet.
Someday. You'll work with Henry Fonda, presumably. No.
Well, I'll be dead as well, that's a certain.
Speaking of, someone's written this wrong. What kind of music did you listen to? I mean, I assume you still listen to music.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, all sorts. I like all kinds of music. I have very
Favorite
eclectic tastes. There's a song I like. It's from the movie Bringing Up Baby.
Yes.
I can't give you anything but love, baby.
A classic. And let's see, who is your favorite playwright?
Oh, that would be G.B. Shaw. I played Epiphania in The Millionaires in London in the 50s. And it was a role he originally wrote for Edith Evans. And she turned it down because she found it too icy. I would have loved to have met the man, Shaw. I would always regret it, but what a fascinating conversation that would have been.
Now, I'm aware of the time, and, may I just say that over the course of this interview, I've fallen in love with you all over again.
Yes, you may.
Ladies and gentlemen, Catherine Kate Hepburn. and Phyllis Wilson. And thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for tuning in. Please join me next week when my guest will be Kirk Douglas. And we're